So let's get to the big three.
Number 3.
Well, I think he likely has had good dialogue with Putin. Putin talks peace in those conversations, but he doesn't follow through on it. He makes promises, but he doesn't keep them.
Yep, that is true, General Jack Keane. Bring on the pain for Vladimir Putin, Mr. President. Trump's still waiting on Putin as Europe outlines what security guarantees Ukraine would need from America. To me, Putin's showing us he's not ready for peace, so bring in the sanctions, the isolation, unfreeze his funds, and hand them to Zelensky.
Number 2.
Are you urging or encouraging any candidates in the New York City mayor's race to drop out to clear the field?
No, I don't like to see a communist become mayor, I will tell you that. And I don't think you can win unless you have one-on-one.
That is true, and the President of the United States cares about New York, although it's good for the Republican Party to have a Democrat fully reveal that they're Marxists and socialists. New York mayor's race getting Trump's attention. The White House makes moves to confront the radical Zohran Mamdani before the mayor Mamdani gets a chance to debate, whether it's Cuomo, whether it's Sliwa, whether it's Adams. We bring you the backroom deal making.
Number 1.
You're so wrong on your facts.
You're interrupting me, and sir, you're a charlatan.
Because you are citing data that you won't produce to the public.
You're just making things up.
And you are sitting as Secretary of Health and Human Services? How can you be that ignorant?
Yeah, those are people just ranting and raving. Please tell me what was accomplished yesterday. Nothing short of a brawl in business suits as RFK takes and dishes attacks from both sides of the aisle on vaccines, personal health mandates, and more. It had to be heard to be believed. And here's a little of it. Here is a little of the exchange, and then we'll bring in Senator Marshall. Yesterday, for example, with Ron Wyden. Cut 5.
This is about kids being pushed in harm's way by reckless and repeated decisions to get scientists and doctors out of the way and allow conspiracy theories to dictate this country's health policy. I don't see any evidence that you have any regrets about anything you've done or plans to change it. And my last comment is, I hope that you will tell the American people how many preventable child deaths are an acceptable sacrifice for enacting an agenda that I think is fundamentally cruel and defies common sense. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do I get a reply? Or Senator, you've sat in that chair for how long? 20, 25 years, while the chronic disease in our children went up to 76%. And you said nothing. You never asked the question why it's happening. Why is this happening? Today, for the first time in 20 years, we learned that infant mortality has increased in our country. It's not because I came in here.
And that is just a little of the personal attacks every way to Sunday. Senator Roger Marshall, I'm sure you saw some of it. Your thoughts?
Brian, good morning. I was there for all of it. I think that, first of all, when you turn the lights on, it turns that place into a theater, and it's too sad. You're spot on. We did not accomplish anything yesterday. It was obvious to me the Democrats, the last person they talked to going in that room was their comms director, not their legislative director, to actually talk about policy. Many of us think that giving children 76 jabs by the time they're old enough to vote is throwing children in harm's way, that there's really no good reason to give a baby on day number 1 a hepatitis vaccine when you've got a negative test on mom and they're in a stable monogamous relationship. They're not on IV drugs. Of course, you know I'm an OB, delivered a baby every day for 25 years. And there's just so many ridiculousness of the vaccine schedule. I'm more of a measured person. I think that when Secretary Kennedy talks about transparency, what we're trying to do is empower parents and the doctors with good information so that you can make the best decision for your child. The Democrats always have this authoritative big brother thing that they think that if there's any vaccine out there, you should take it, put on 7 masks, let's say 6 foot apart from each other. They've got a prescription for everything. I'm the doctor that wants to inform you and have this discussion with you, and then we make the decision together.
So we know the Harvard poll comes out, and overall, 79% of Americans thinks vaccines work, 90% of Democrats, 68% of Republicans. You're a doctor. What if, for your kids, what vaccines do you make sure they have?
Absolutely. The MMR, you start that at 1 year of age. The benefits way outweigh the risk. Polio vaccination, I'm a huge fan of. I've raised money for it as well. The DPT, the diphtheria, pertussis, and tetanus vaccine, I think are all great as well. I'm sure there's more. What I'm concerned about is the interaction amongst them. That when you give all these especially a 1-day-old baby, what's it doing to the development of the baby's and the child's immune system? Is this why everybody has a peanut allergy, or autoimmune diseases are spiking, autism, all these? I can't prove any of that. All I know is something is wrong. Let's be a little bit more measured when we choose which vaccines we're going to give. There's a time to give the hepatitis vaccine, and some babies do need it on day number 1, but my grandchildren did not need hepatitis B vaccine on day number 1.
So I heard Senator Cassidy's questions. They were all good, but he did not wait for any answers. What is the approach, Senator, of having – this guy's already got confirmed, so don't tell me you just want to make a speech. What's the sense of not leaving him time to talk?
It is tough when you have 5 minutes, and I understand too. I cut him off once myself because I wanted to get to the next question. I don't have a good answer except I go back to this. It's a comms moment. It's a made for TV moment, and everyone's trying to get their second on your show or on your morning show, right?
Here is Senator Marty McCary, and just about the approach of this version of HHS, Cut 14.
We've had a myopic approach to health where we only talk about drugs and surgery. And I can tell you from my career as a physician at Johns Hopkins for 22 years, it's a system that's just a treadmill where you are just incentivized to bill and code and treat and operate. And so we've had this giant blind spot that no one has talked about until Secretary Kennedy, and that is to talk about school lunch programs, not just putting every 6-year-old on Ozempic, to talk about food as medicine and the microbiome and gut health, to talk about chemicals that cause cancer, not just the chemo to treat it. So we have an exciting agenda now where the NIH is studying root causes.
Well, they're excited. I'm excited. The Maha movement's excited, but it doesn't seem like anyone in Congress is excited. I saw another Republican, Senator Wasserman, had big questions. So what level of excitement do you have, and how do you feel about the need to address some of these fundamental things?
Hallelujah for Dr. McCary. He is absolutely spot on. I've spent hours and hours working with Marty, who I've known for several years, and Secretary Kennedy working on what Maha legislation looks to put air beneath their wings. And, it starts with food as medicine. We're trying to get whole milk back in school. We're working with our farmers to make more healthy food, to use less pesticides, less fertilizers, more nutrient-rich food. That's what we should have been talking about yesterday, Brian. Instead, you just mentioned the word COVID vaccine, and everybody loses their mind. They go to their political corner, and then we're going to fight about this stupid virus one more time. It is so frustrating. I want to talk about this chronic disease epidemic. 76%, as Secretary Kennedy said, 76% of Americans have a chronic disease. 20% of our children are on some type of a prescription drug right now. We have an epidemic of mental health illness in our youth and young adults as well. Why? Because of social media. There's legislation out there to make things better. We've got that package together, and that'll be my goal for the rest of this semester in Congress. Yeah, so I want to bring you to Ukraine if I can. The president yesterday said he's going to talk to Vladimir Putin again. He hasn't run out of patience. I think it's done. If you watched him with the Chinese leader and the North Korean leader, he has no interest in peace. Here's Emmanuel Macron says he's finalizing American support in a phone call yesterday, cut 26.
The conclusion of this call is simple. In the following days, we will finalize the American support to these security guarantees.
So they want to talk about security guarantees. I think it's time to up-arm Ukraine because it's the only thing Vladimir Putin understands. What are your thoughts? You're absolutely right. The only thing that Putin understands is power, is strength himself. And really, I don't think he does anything differently until he sees Europe stepping it up. I think they're the ones that need to step it up right now, that they need to stop buying gasoline and LNG from Putin. They're still buying LNG. They're buying almost half
Putin's LNG that he's exporting. I want the United States to keep doing our part, but really my focus is on Europe. I'm all in on these sanctions, doubling down on them. I've been calling for that since the day that they invaded. I don't know why we're dragging our feet, but it's done talking with him right now. He's only going to respond to strength, to power. That's all that he understands. This guy is a cold-blooded killer. Common sense is not going to work with him.
We're literally having a war on drugs before it gets to our borders. You saw that boat that got blown out of the water off the coast of Venezuela. They actually had a jet buzz one of our ships yesterday. That better not happen again. So your thought about and you've been briefed about what the plan is using the Department of Defense to rein in these cartels.
Look, this is a war, Brian. We're losing a Kansan every day to fentanyl poisoning. We're losing 100 or 200 Americans every day to fentanyl poisoning. This is the most immediate threat to our nation, and we've secured the border. So now what's happening is the drug lords are bringing them more in through the boats, through Southern California, the West Coast, and then on the East Coast as well. This is a war. All's fair in love and war. So that's all I can say is I'm tired of seeing our young kids die being poisoned. They think they're taking an Adderall or a Xanax tablet. It's laced with this fentanyl and other drugs, which are 100 times more potent than that as well. So this is war. Whatever it takes to stop the fentanyl poisoning going on in this country, I'm all for it.
Well, when we watch the other thing the president's moving on is crime in D.C. Give me an idea of the D.C. you came back to after a month off.
That's amazing, Brian. My wife and I got back after being gone for a month, and we took a walk. We live by the Capitol, and there was kids playing volleyball in the courtyard beside the Russell Hart building. There was just a whole different atmosphere. You can walk down to Union Station now and listen to music rather than being panhandled and fearing for your life with all the comes along with the homelessness as well. It is just day and night. You go to the restaurants even now, and you can see that the waiters and waitresses have a hop in their step. So it is absolutely the crime rate has literally been cut in half. We were having a murder every other day this year in Washington, D.C. until President Trump said enough. So we've cut the crime in half. We're not finished. We got more work to do. So
what about Chicago? Would you be in support of putting National Guard, more FBI, more ICE agents into Chicago, even though the governors and mayors against it?
Look, certainly the FBI and all that stuff, I don't have to even think twice about it. If that's where the low-hanging fruit is, that's where they need to go and do their job, then super. I don't understand why the Chicago mayor and governor wouldn't say, we need your help. We're open arms, come. Much like Mayor Bowser in D.C. did, that she, of course, pushed against it. She had to show her base, but now she's secretly happy that we've come in there and helped. Same way with the Democrats, senators. They're all pushing back against this, but none of them will go walk by themselves unless they have their own detail, right? So I think we need to tread lightly on the National Guard and keep I'd have to really think twice about whether I want the National Guard there without their permission. But if there's a place that needs to be done, it'll be Chicago.
As you know, in the DNC, you didn't go, but it was in D.C. It's in Chicago, the DNC, and he asked the National Guard. They had to work. He called them up, did Governor Pritzker. So if they're so ineffective in cities, why did you need him so bad? Why does Governor Kathy Hochul put the National Guard in her subways? I thought they're not meant for that. Why am I looking at guys with guns and camouflage in the subways? They didn't mind. But now it's a problem. David Axelrod kind of agrees with you. Cut 41.
I would be careful about playing 28 politics on this issue because the right answer is we'll take all the help we can get as long as it's appropriate help, as long as it's stuff that will really help. I mean, these National Guardsmen aren't even trained to do that work. They're not authorized to do that work. So, send us the resources that we need. We want to work with you. If there are people doing violent crimes here who are illegal immigrants, we want them out of our city. We'll work with you on that.
So he's saying that Pritzker, by coming out saying, I don't need any help while being the murder capital of the country, not great.
Yeah. So Americans, I think the number one issue to Americans, you wake up in the morning, Brian, is my family safe? Are my kids, are my grandkids safe? Is my staff safe? That's the number one thing. What the person just, I think you said, Mr. Axelrod, he doesn't understand what the National Guard can do. They can provide support, intelligence, they crowd control. We sent some of our military to the southern border. We went down and visited them, troops from Fort Riley, Kansas. They were doing intelligence. They had helicopters. They were moving troops around. There's a whole lot of support things they can do, but leave the arresting to the local police, the FBI, those types of people, the federal officers. So they can be a huge force multiplier. These people are good.
I hear you. Senator Roger Marshall, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Brian. Have a great day.
Joining us now is James Blair, White House Deputy Chief of Staff. James, welcome.
Hey, Brian, how are you? Great to be back.
I know how busy you are, so thanks so much for your time. First off, on the jobs numbers, I know the president says his programs are really going to kick in 6 months from now, a year from now, but 22,000 jobs, you wanted 75,000. How do you feel about it?
Well, look, I mean, I think what it underscores is we don't necessarily know what's going on with the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Obviously, you want strong job numbers, but, you know, there was some hubbub last month when we wanted to make a change there. So first and foremost, I want to make sure that we're getting accurate data. I think that's what the economy needs. It's what the market needs. It's why we have a new nominee moving through the confirmation process right now. So, look, we all want a strong economy. We want jobs numbers, but we also want lower interest rates. I imagine that this data will probably drive that. And, you know, what the truth is, I guess we'll see as revisions begin to happen. But first and foremost, I think that, you know, we've got concerns about the data generally, and that is exactly why we need new leadership over there.
But you're not saying it's false. You're just not comfortable with the data.
Yeah, I mean, how can I know? You know, I've not looked at anything other than the reports they've put out, you know.
So let's move to something else I know that matters. It looks as though the President of the United States is asking the Supreme Court to expedite its decision on his appeal to make sure that tariffs are allowed to constitutionally valid and allowed to stand up, and the revenue that you've pulled in allows to stay because an appeals court reversed that decision. What are the thoughts of the Supreme Court? When's the earliest you expect them to see it?
My understanding is it would be towards the end of this year, and that's the expedited basis that it would happen on. I mean, we want it as soon as possible. That's what the president has said, because the president wants stability. He wants something that we can count on. Obviously, the administration has a strong view of what the law is and that the tariffs are indeed valid, but the president does not want disruption. He'd rather have a clear answer, you know, one way or another as soon as possible, but of course, recognizing that our strong view is they are valid. But here's what's really important when we need to talk about what's at stake here. We are collecting hundreds of billions of dollars, which is going straight to deficit reduction. Prices have not substantially increased. There's not inflation as a result of that. That has not borne out as true, despite the statements and sort of the media coverage that was always saying that was going to be true, right? And importantly, it's not just us saying it. Just a couple of weeks ago, while Congress was in recess for the summer, the Congressional Budget Office put out a revision to their own expectations of what the tariff revenue is going to be. They think it's going to be at least $4 trillion over the next 10 years. Again, straight to deficit reduction. So I think that's something that the American people support. It is not something that is driving consumer prices, and it's something that is really good for our country. And as we know, it's reset the trade relationships and just the geopolitical relationships generally around the globe. It has put America back in the driver's seat, and it has proven what the president always said, which is the American consumer, the American market matters the most. And all of these companies, we have CEOs in all the time, okay? They like this. They want to build here. They just want to know that it's going to be stable. It's been a one-way open market to the U.S. for a really long time, while other countries have abused our people and our businesses, and the president's trying to balance that. So there's a lot at stake. We hope the court will make the right decision, but most importantly, the president just wants it answered sooner rather than later.
Has it hindered the talks with Canada and India that I know, and maybe Mexico, because we've not had a trade deal in a few weeks? They were thought to be next. Have people said we're going to wait for the courts to rule?
No, very much trade deals are ongoing. I mean, I think these countries are smart enough to know that the president is not going to walk away from this. We will continue to push, and we will find a way, one way or another. I mean, this is something President Trump has been talking about for 40 years, long before he ran for office. If you go back and look at Donald Trump of the 1980s and 1990s, he was talking about this. He has thought deeply about this issue, as an economic team that has thought deeply about this issue. You have Scott Bessent, who is a renowned, professor of economic history. People have thought deeply about this and what tariffs have meant in sort of the course of economic history. And this is something we are going to see through one way or another. And I think the other countries recognize that. So that it has not chilled trade talks. Trade talks continue to be great. I think just yesterday we finalized the Japan deal and it was signed by the president. So things continue to move forward.
So what about Canada? Is that close?
I can't speak exactly to, what is continuing to be negotiated. I think the conversations are ongoing. I mean, close is a relative term. Look, we've got some significant disagreements with the Canadians, as you know, but we will continue to work at it. And, we'll see where we get. But the president has said about Canada, the president doesn't need a deal with Canada so much as Canada needs a deal with us. So Canada is going to have to give us a good deal, and that's just the way it is.
It's obvious they pulled off their hard line that got Carney elected. Now he realizes this is not going away. So it looks like he's been more aggressive in trying to get a deal done. Also, it looks like the president wanted to get the USMCA updated. Is that correct?
Well, look, what the president wants ultimately is a trade system, however we come by it, and we may ultimately ask friends on Capitol Hill for help. We want a trade system that is fair to the United States and recognizes the supremacy of the American market. And when you see all of these other countries that protect their own markets by having very high tariff barriers and non-tariff barriers, not only on us, but other parts of the world, it's just not fair. So, look, we're going to use all tools at our disposal to create a system that is fair to the American people ultimately and recognizes that it has been a one-way open market into the United States, not outbound for a very long time. So we'll use all tools at our disposal, whether that's trade deals formal, whether that's congressionally ratified deals, whether that's tariffs, to make that happen during his term.
We're talking to James Blair. He is the White House Deputy Chief of Staff. So we understand 400 plus illegals were arrested at a major Hyundai plant over in Georgia. So you went in there. Were there criminals there? Is this the worst of the worst, or is this something else?
Look, the president has always been focused on deporting the criminals first and foremost, and those that are dangerous. A large bulk of the people that are being arrested and deported are criminals. They're all criminals in the sense that they all broke the law to get here, but primarily focused on people who are committing crimes in this country actively. But at the macro level, the president campaigned on this: is that we've got to get illegal immigrants out of the country. There's many, many more than I think the numbers ever suggested. They said 8 million, 10 million. The president thinks there was 20 or 25 million. Either way, it's a lot, and we're going to continue to plow forward with deportation, which is something we campaigned on. It's something the American people support still to this day. If you ask voters who do they trust more on immigration, Republicans or Democrats, it's overwhelmingly Republicans. Do you support mass deportation, particularly of criminals? Yes, they do. So the president is just continuing to do what he said he was going to do. I don't think anyone's surprised by this. I don't see us stopping anytime soon.
I did ask him about what are you going to do with people who have been here a while that are vital to meat packers, hospitality, and farmers, many of which voted for him. Here's what he told me. Do you have a plan to give them long-term work visas, not citizenship, to not hurt the people, not hurt our economy?
So as you know, I won the election with the farmers by like 88%. I won the election with the people that want strong borders by probably 100%, I would imagine, right? I mean, how could you vote for somebody that wants open borders, that never called the Border Patrol, that never went to the site? We have to take care of our farmers. We love our farmers. But we also have to take care of people that want total security and safety in our country. We're going to take care of both.
Do you think within 3 months you'll have an answer to the hospitality workers, meat packers, and farmers? Because I think they make up. So within 3 months?
Yep.
Okay.
Do. I think people are going to be happy.
So how does that, number one, have you seen the plan in terms of giving people long-term work visas and having other requirements like a sponsor? Have you seen the framework of a plan like that? And number two, how does that gel with this raid?
Well, look, there's enforcement priorities, okay, and I think that the enforcement priorities, are generally being followed, and I think that you've seen that borne out. The president put out some public directives on the groups you mentioned, hospitality workers and farm workers, but most importantly, there seems to be a lot of focus on process, but no one is pointing to any downside of continuing to deport people. We're getting criminals out of the country. We're doing what we said we would. Nobody is saying they can't run a business. Nobody is saying that they don't have employees, they don't have labor. None of those things are being said. So, I think it's much ado about nothing largely, and we'll see what continues to unfold. But first and foremost, we're focused on the enforcement that we committed to the American people, and we're going to keep doing that.
No one ever thought the border in their lifetime would be shut down like it is, and it's all the deterrence, knowing that if you come, you're going to be kicked out. If you spend your life savings, it's going to go to waste. And also people here, the numbers are over 1 million people self-deported. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. I think people understand that the American people are not willing, nor are they responsible to carry the load of the entire world. There is a legal immigration system. You can come through it. Many, many people have. We are supportive of that. But jumping the border and, just sort of going into our country, benefiting from all of the programs that the American people pay for, it's just not fair. It's not right. And we've got to restore balance to that. And that's what we're doing.
So one of the big stories this week was seeing China have their military parade, celebrate 80 years of a victory of World War II, not mention the U.S., which is farcical, and the defeat of Japan minimized our role, which is hysterical. But it was also serious because you had North Korea, Russia, India, and China all walking together. So the president just put this on Truth Social 4 hours ago. He goes, "It looks like we lost India and Russia to the deepest, darkest China. May they have a long and prosperous future together." What are we to read into that? Do you look at India as lost, James Blair?
I will not speak for the president as it relates to what his view of other countries are. I think the president's words speaks for themselves. I think he issued stern warnings earlier this week on Truth. I think he's continuing to make a point right now. I think you see right now that we have pressure on India for the buying of Russian oil and everything else. He's commented about this several times this week. I think the president is making a point that if you're getting into bed with geopolitical adversaries of the United States, you're going to need to think deeply about that and what costs that will come with.
Here's the president on Vladimir Putin, because I know the president spoke to Zelensky yesterday. Cut 22.
After your phone call with Ukrainian President Zelensky today, do you plan to speak with Russia's President Putin in the near future?
I will be, yeah, I will be. We're having a very good dialogue. I settled 7 wars. The one that I thought would be maybe one of the easiest. You know that feeling? You think one thing is going to be easier, it turns out to be a little bit tougher.
So is Vladimir Putin somebody the president has not given up on trying to get something done? Because it seems as though this guy is not ready for peace. In fact, a day after getting the letter from the First Lady saying, return the children, essentially, he bombed a kindergarten in Ukraine. So, James Blair, how much patience does a president have with Vladimir Putin?
I don't think it's about patience. I think the president has continued to escalate pressure on both sides and get them to talk. And let's recognize where we are. Nobody in the entire world could even get communication going prior to President Trump. So for those saying, well, there's not a deal yet, well, guess what? At least they're communicating and we're working on outlines and the two sides are at least remotely engaged. That was not the case before President Trump came into office. All that was happening was people were being mutilated on both sides, thousands a week, which continues. The Europeans couldn't do anything. Joe Biden did nothing. Nothing was happening anywhere. Putin was just storming through Ukraine and going to take the whole thing. That's not happening anymore. The president has them talking. So I think the president remains committed to peace. He is a peace-loving president, although backed by strength, and I think he's hopeful. But again, we'll have to see that both sides are serious about that peace.
What was the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, went from Mexico City to Ecuador, trying to give a message to Central and South America, declared 2 more gangs, terror organizations. We know blew up that boat in the Caribbean that was heading to Trinidad, perhaps, with drugs. How does the president and how does the White House feel about some of the criticism that, well, you didn't know who was there and you should have arrested them? What do you say to that?
Well, first of all, of course we know. I mean, of course we know. Second of all, I think that if the Democrats, which I just tweeted about this a few minutes ago, are going to defend the right of murderous narco traffickers and narco terrorists to traffic drugs into the United States and murder into the United States, they should begin by explaining it to the families of the 80,000 Americans that overdosed just last year on illegal drugs. That's what the Democrats are standing up for. They are defending narco terrorists who are killing American citizens by the tens of thousands. President Trump says enough. I'm not having it. You know, it's just like cleaning up D.C. crime, Brian. You can fix problems. The government can fix problems. It can protect the American people, which is the number one role of our system, is the number one thing the federal government is supposed to do, is to protect the American people. You can protect them from violent criminals. You can protect them from narco terrorists. You just have to have the will to do it. And President Trump has the will, and he's going to do it. And if the Democrats and the mainstream media want to take the sides of gangbangers and thugs and criminals and murderers and narco traffickers, they should be our guests. I think they will get absolutely obliterated at the ballot box next year for it.
And you can follow him on social media at James Blair USA. James, I need another 2 hours. We still wouldn't cover everything you guys are going after. 200 plus executive orders and a lot of news. James Blair, thanks so much.
Thanks, Brian.
Julian Epstein joins us now, serves as chief counsel to the House Judiciary Committee and staff director to the House Oversight Committee, Democrats from 96 to 2001. Julian, what should the message be for Democrats here? Do you like Axelrod's advice to Pritzker?
Well, I think it's better than what Pritzker's been saying. I think it's better what a lot of big city mayors have been saying. The mayor in Washington, where I live, where you have seen a definite improvement since the Trump crime surge, or since the Trump crime police surge, a crackdown. Yeah, there's been big improvement there. So I think it's sort of a much better place for the Democrats to be. If I'm the Democrats, I say, hey, look, we want to work with the federal government. We want crime to come down. Right now, what we see as the current crime rates, you have homicide rates in the big cities as much as 25, 30 per 100,000. The average, Brian, in the modern world is 2 to 5 per 100,000. So what Democrats should be saying is, hey, we want to find a way to work with the feds to do a police surge and do a crackdown, rather than what is the default position for the Democrats on nearly every issue, which is to be as opposite of Trump as they can possibly be, which is putting them in a very unpopular position. It's sort of like, you know, this is the soft bigotry of low expectations. The crime in big cities is a catastrophe, and the status quo has been acceptable to Democrats. Trump has figured out a really an important, not just a political cleave on the Democrats, but a policy one, to say that, hey, what we really need is a much, much stronger police presence.
Yeah, and by the way, some of the people in Chicago, they say they never see cops on the corner. There's not enough. I think they're about 1,000 down. I saw one MSNBC host say this. Here's my advice to J.B. Pritzker. He said, I think he should pick up the phone, call the president, say, I know you want to have... I know you don't have a constitutional authority to deploy the National Guard here and to police my city. You can do that in D.C., you can do that in Chicago, but let's partner up here. How do we do that? Now, the middle part, that's still working its way through the courts, and they can't police, but there are things they can do. But we saw with San Francisco that court ruled. But that sense of, I will pick my spots to work with the president from another party, to me makes you a better presidential candidate. Don't you think?
Oh, I mean, I think the Democrats should be doing this across the board. I think they should be doing it on immigration. I think they should be doing it on energy. I think they should be doing it on, across the board on the issues. They should be finding a way of working with the president because the president is occupying the political center right now. And then if they want to find, if they want to be the oppositional party, they can find ways of distinguishing themselves from the president. For example, on crime, they could say, yes, let's get the feds in here, but we as a state and local guys want to take the lead in calling the shots on sort of, what the police strategy is going to be. They could easily be finding a sort of a middle ground here. But the instinct of Democrats right now is to take a position as far opposite, as directly opposite to the Trump position as possible. That's where the activist base wants to be. That's where the donors want to be. That's where the far left progressives want to be. The progressive ideology, Brian, is fundamentally a nihilist ideology that preaches skepticism of all of the major institutions of the West, whether it is law enforcement, whether it is borders, whether it is a colorblind pluralistic society, whether it's gender. The ideology of the left right now is to be as antagonistic towards Trump and nihilistic towards the traditions of the West, which have made the West great. And that's why the Democrats are in such a bad place politically. And crime is such an easy example where the Democrats could be taking the position that they took in the 1990s under Clinton, where we had 100,000 cops on the street. It was very, very pro-law enforcement, and they could be finding ways to team, but it's just not the impulse of the Democrats. The impulse of the Democrats is to tear down the institutions that have made the West great and find every opportunity you can to be as strident and as hysterical and shrill in your opposition towards Trump.
So Wes Moore of Maryland came out last week and said, we don't have a communication problem. We have a success problem. A lot of our policies have not been successful. And then Ezra Klein writes this book called Abundance and has his podcast. And he says, this is the way. We have to come up with new ideas with Democrats without just spending money. Have you heard about this when rational people like you and other Democrats get together? And Harold Ford's another example. And to me, Joe Manchin is another example of a successful formula. Have you heard about what Ezra Klein and others are talking about on the left?
Oh, sure. It's the abundance idea. And I think that's where the Democrats need to move to building rather than tearing down. And I like that idea. I just don't think it's big enough to bring the Democrats back to nirvana. I think it's got to be something much deeper than just building, although I think building is an important part of where the Democrats need to get to. Abundance is basically a Republican idea of deregulation so that you can get things like housing going and you can begin to find industry getting more robust in the states. And I think it's sort of combined with a big welfare state where government is undertaking big initiatives to get things done. So, I mean, I think it's sort of the half answer, but politics isn't just about. James Carville once said, "It's the economy, stupid," and I think that is one of the biggest myths that's ever been sold. It's not just economic issues. Economic issues are important, but it's also cultural issues. People want to know if their party, the person they're voting for, relates to them culturally. So when you get this idea of biological men playing in women's sports, most voters say culturally that's just repulsive to me. When you get the idea of not being tough on crime or having a skepticism of law enforcement, that's repulsive to most people. That's a cultural issue. When you talk about open borders, most people just think that's wrong. You can't have a democracy functioning where you have millions of unscreened migrants coming into the country, not knowing whether they assimilate, not knowing whether they share our values. That's just repulsive to a lot of people. So it's not just economic issues. It's not just building. It's not just the abundance agenda. Democrats are out of step with the voters culturally on many issues. And the crime issue you bring up is just one good example. And Democrats need a major course correction there, but we don't have the leaders that have the gonads that are willing to stand up to the progressive left and say, you're wrong, you're out of step with voters, and we're going to make a major course correction the way Clinton did in 92.
Well, a couple of things. And I want to bring you to the mayor's race in New York, where Hakeem Jeffries and Senator Schumer and Dan Goldman and Governor Hochul have all not endorsed the winner of the Democratic primary, and it is Zohran Mamdani. And to the point where they are worried, because if Mamdani is the face of the Democrats, your party, then they will not be successful in the midterms. So John Catsimatidis, a power player here in New York, runs one of our great affiliates, WABC, very good friends with Donald Trump, self-made billionaire, said that they are making an effort now to streamline the field and make it Cuomo against Mamdani. I got problems with the final two, but listen to it. John Catsimatidis said, cut 21.
I believe that things will happen in the month of September, that something will happen. I am confident. Don't forget, President Trump saved America. I mean, they tried to assassinate him twice. They tried to indict him in 4 different states. I mean, who was pressing the button in the White House? Somebody in the White House was pressing that button to indict him in 4 different states, and somebody in the White House was pressing that button on those assassinations. Look at one of the assassinations. They cremated the body within 10 days on a presidential candidate.
John, that's got nothing to do with the mayoral race in New York City.
Something is going to happen in the month of September.
What's going to happen?
Something's going to happen. I'm highly confident.
That's your only hope?
He saved America. He saved the free world. You know what I said to him on Sunday? I said to him, time for you to save New York.
Well, what he did is had Steve Witkoff talk to Eric Adams about dropping out and giving him an ambassadorship. It doesn't look like Curtis Lee was going anywhere. He's going to be on with me Sunday. But that would leave Cuomo one-on-one with Mamdani. In one poll, he beats him. Would it be good for the Democratic Party for Cuomo to win, as bad as he's been?
Yeah, he's much better than Mamdani. I mean, I think Cuomo has a lot of the right instincts in terms of moving the party back to the political center where it was in the 1990s. He's a flawed candidate, obviously. I think he made major mistakes during COVID. He's got some baggage, but he's a lot better than Mamdani. Mamdani, the Democratic Party, has a problem with socialism that goes beyond Mamdani, and it's coming straight out of the universities, Brian. And it is teaching students this really unfortunate ideology that it's okay to be resentful of the West, even though the West has liberated literally billions of people and uplifted them economically more so than any system ever. Western ideas have done that. And what the universities are teaching right now is it's okay to be resentful. It's okay to want to
hopefully that changes. I know. Hopefully that changes.
Well, hopefully it does. But it's coming out of the universities, and it's teaching students there's an easy way out, which is rather than building in the 21st century where AI is going to dominate, look for handouts. And it's it's becoming the cop-out generation, and this is being reinforced by the Democratic Party. And beyond Mamdani, Democrats are going to have a problem with this going forward. But for sure, Cuomo would be a better candidate.
All right. Julian, thanks so much. Interesting times, and we'll continue to talk about it.
We're going to immediately go to court. If National Guard or other military troops are deployed to the city of Chicago, immediately go to court. So that's going to be our first line of defense, is getting a court to issue a TRO or other injunction against that activity.
So a temporary restraining order to stop President Trump for coming in with more FBI, more ICE agents, more Border Patrol, as well as National Guard, to guard against a crime-ridden city, because I guess he wants to keep it crime-ridden, because he feels as though the Governor Pritzker is heading in the right direction. But if he could go to court, could he stop the National Guard from being deployed by the federal government? Because that's what a San Francisco justice did, Judge Breyer. Are they going to build off that case? Because I know the president's appealing that. What does it mean legally? Let's bring in Trey Gowdy, former chairman of the House Oversight Committee, host of Sunday Night in America, Sundays at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, that you watch every week, author of a brand new book, number 2, and then on the fiction list. It's called The Color of Death. Trey, welcome back.
Thank you, Brian. I got to see you last week in person, and I feel deprived. One of the most handsome men on the face of the earth, and I have to talk to you on the telephone. And last week I got to see you in person.
I know. What a thrill it is to see me in person. Eric and Pete, do you want to back that up? Am I truly the most handsome person that you
There's
guys
no
know?
stats for that right
There's
now.
no stats? Nothing available? Okay. Nope. Thank you very much, Trey. But in terms of, I could tap into not only your you were a print model in the past, that's how we found you and you got recruited to law school, but can I tap into the law school background? Does Pritzker, does he have a shot at being successful in forcing the president not to come in?
It depends. It depends on how the president phrases his order. So I went and read Breyer's opinion in California, and I won't go into posse comitatus and all of that, except to say it's going to depend upon how the National Guard is used. And what I would recommend to the president is a very tightly worded order to Secretary Hegseth, and I would use the National Guard for non-law enforcement purposes, which then frees up the cops. So the mere presence of guardsmen or police officers deters crime. I mean, that's been proven in D.C. It's been proven in every jurisdiction. Police presence deters. So would a military presence. So they can't, if you go and look at Breyer's order, which is 70-something pages long, there are certain things that guardsmen can do without running afoul of posse comitatus, and there are certain things they cannot do. Now, even the judge in California agreed to stay his opinion because he knows it's going to be appealed. And quite candidly, the Ninth Circuit, which is where California is presumptively reversible. I mean, you can just presume they're going to be reversed. That's how wrong they usually are. What I find fascinating is Pritzker is willing to go to court to keep his city less safe.
I know.
That's the animus he has for Trump.
It makes no sense. The one thing I would hope Trump would do as a project is you go in for 30 days, but have a program to sustain the success they're likely to have after he leaves. So maybe it's massive recruiting. Maybe it's dollars to recruit to different officers. Maybe it's looking at the laws that maybe reasonable people would want to visit to make crime and punishment more of a deterrent. Maybe leave additional ICE agents or Border Patrol, whatever it is. I just worry about after 30 days, everything goes back as opposed to fixing one city at a time.
Well, I want to make you feel better. 90% of all crime is committed by less than 10% of your fellow citizens.
Right.
So the key is when you have a chance to separate that 10% from society, which requires good prosecutors, not progressive prosecutors, good prosecutors, good cops, and good cases. So if the prosecutors do their job, then you will slowly see crime go down. And then if you can maintain that presence, I mean, even a marked squad car, literally, Brian, a marked squad car with a mannequin in it is the data shows that it slows drivers down. You don't even have to expend the woman power or the manpower of putting a cop in the car. Just a marked car with a mannequin has a deterrent effect. So police presence, military presence, and then good prosecutors, the whole world is not likely to hurt you. It's a very small percentage.
Yeah.
But we got to separate them from society.
So what Pritzker did to bring up the legal aspect of this, cut 40.
There is no way for me to override. State law does not override federal law. So we have to abide by the law. We do that in the state of Illinois. We abide by the law. We abide by state law and federal law, unlike the President of the United States, who often acts in unconstitutional fashions.
So he's right about that, right? State law is not trump federal law. But if they walk into a hostile environment, these National Guardsmen, would they end up in a situation like Portland, where they see no local cops and they become a target of anarchists?
Well, they're not. Well, first of all, even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and again. Yes, Governor Pritzker is correct on the supremacy clause. The federal law enforcement agents don't need his permission to go enforce So if you're talking about the FBI, DEA, ICE, they don't need his permission, and he can't get in the way or else they will arrest him. So he can't obstruct. When you're talking about guardsmen, then that brings in posse comitatus, that brings in using the military for domestic law enforcement. That's when you've got to be super detailed in exactly what you are asking the guard to do. And so somebody was belittling the guard recently for like fixing, planting mulch or yeah, all of that actually matters when it comes to fighting crime, by the way. All of that matters. So how you use the guard, is it for the protection of federal buildings or is it for crowd control in areas not connected to federal facilities? It's got to be a tightly drawn order, but his lawyers know that, and they'll do a good job.
All right. Your book is number 2 on the fiction list. So congratulations on that. It's called The Color of Death. Trey, what are people telling you when they read it, or what's some of the feedback you've gotten since it came out last week?
Well, they've been incredibly kind, for which I'm grateful because, as you know, you're a prolific author yourself. It's not the first thing you and I, every English teacher you or I ever had is shocked that we read a book, much less wrote one. So people have been really, really kind. The dominant reaction to it is you left me hanging. But I did that on purpose. I mean, as I shared with you, I had way too much material for one book. My editors and my publisher said, look, we see 3 books here, not one. I tried to cram it's been in my head for 10 years. I tried to cram it all in one book, and they said, no. This is a series. So they're right. I purposely left some strings dangling because in my mind, they're reconciled. They are cleaned up in books 2 and 3. So I would say to everyone that is saying, wait, I can't believe you did that to me. Number 1, I'm sorry. But number 2, I am going to make it right. It's just coming in books 2 and 3.
All right. Trey, congratulations. It's called, I got to go pick it up. It's called The Color of Death. It's a Fox book. But Trey, who do you have on Sunday at 9 o'clock Eastern time?
Oh, I've got a horrific story, Brian, that breaks my heart. I'm going to try to get to it without crying. A beautiful 22-year-old girl was simply visiting Columbia, South Carolina, executed on her knees by someone who had been arrested 40 times. So her father is going to come on and celebrate her life, but also ask, why is this not a death penalty case? I got John Cornyn coming on. We're going to talk about vaccines in the hearing with Secretary Kennedy. We're going to talk about what happened off the coast of Venezuela. And look, I mean, we've been fighting with the cartels since they killed Kiki Camarena back when I was in law school, and that war is ongoing. But Trump is ratcheting it up. We're not extraditing people and prosecuting them. He's blowing them out of the water. So look, I have the misfortune of being wedged between Mark Levin and Brian Kilmeade. So I am grateful for the show, but I'm surrounded by talented hosts. I'm grateful for every eyeball I get because I got stars before me and stars coming after me.
Well, yeah, your show's doing the best. I mean, it's number 1 or number 2 every single weekend, so it's doing fantastic.
I got a big family, Brian.
It must be really big and spread out and international. Trey Gowdy, congratulations on the book. Go out and pick it up. Listen, you want an escape? A lot of people say, even during school, read a book that gets you out of schoolwork, whether it's studying, whatever you're doing, that escapes. This book is an escape, but it's based on all his years as a prosecutor and everything he knows, sadly, about crime. The Color of Death. Trey Gowdy, thanks so much. Congratulations.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother.
Hopefully
Take
you go
care.
number 1 this week.